There was pretty big news today in the lawsuit that he's now an independent, Tim Canova filed against the Broward County Board of Elections, specifically the supervisor. If you don't know the story, basically Tim Canova obviously faced Debbie Wasserman Schultz in 2016. He lost on paper by 12 percentage points, but the supervisor of elections in Broward County, which is the area where that district is that Canova was primarying Debbie Wasserman Schultz in, destroyed all of the paper ballots, which is against the law. It's literally against the law to do that. But, the law doesn't matter if it's Democratic corruption helping the establishment, right? So Tim Canova has been saying before he switched to an independent, and now that he's independent, we don't know the true results in 2016. We don't know if he actually won. We don't know if he lost, but by much less than 12 percentage points. There was no way to cross-reference and cross-check the results. So today, judges ruling that ballots were illegally destroyed continues Broward election woes. Florida Secretary of State plans to send an election expert to the state's second largest county during the upcoming elections to ensure that all laws are followed after a judge ruled that the Broward Supervisor of Elections illegally destroyed ballots cast in 2016's congressional race. Broward Circuit Judge Rag Singhal issued an order Friday determining that Supervisor Brenda Snipes' office improperly discarded thousands of ballots cast 2 years ago in the Democratic primary race between Tim Canova and Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or as my friend Jimmy Dore says, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. That's a bad imitation, I tried. In a ruling first reported by Politico, Singhal sided with Canova, who filed a lawsuit last year after he said Snipes, who is the board of the supervisor of elections, ignored and then illegally obstructed his request to copy and inspect ballots. Snipes contends that her office kept scanned electronic copies of the ballots and did nothing wrong. She plans to challenge the order, but heading into the midterm election, Singhal's determination that Snipes broke state and federal law is sure to spark controversy around an office that oversees voting in Florida's most reliable Democratic county. Quote, given all the scrutiny going on about election processes these days and election concerns, one has to wonder on the eve of having to produce these records, they were destroyed, Frank Rayner, an attorney for Canova, said. So, I spoke with Tim Canova about an hour ago to ask him, what does this mean? What does it mean that a judge has ruled in his favor? His voice was kind of low, so my business partner, Jen, did us the favor of adding captions so you could hear it. Let me play my interview with Tim Canova to find out what exactly does this mean.
Tell me, what does this summary judgment mean?
Well, it means perhaps the beginning of the end of this ballot destruction case. There's still a ways to go, but it means the court has ruled in our favor. Feels like a big vindication of our efforts to try to first inspect the ballots, and then when we were stonewalled, a vindication of our lawsuit. Unfortunately, in winning the lawsuit, we're winning it because the supervisor of elections destroyed all of the original paper ballots in violation of federal and state law, and that will effectively make it impossible for us to verify the election through the normal inspection process.
So, winning, does it mean she might be facing criminal charges? There's broader supervision over the upcoming well, you're not in the primary, but general election?
Yeah, well, it's uncertain what the consequences will be. We can expect that there will be attorney's fees granted to my attorneys who have worked very hard for the course of a year and a half now. And what's interesting in the court's decision, in the judge's order, the judge suggests that the supervisor showed bad faith in continuing to litigate this case for 8 months after admitting that she had destroyed the paper ballots. And over those 8 months, it has increased the cost of litigation on both sides, and ultimately increased the cost on the taxpayers of Broward County. I think what will come out of this, from what I can gather, is that the governor's office and the Secretary of State of Florida will be more closely monitoring the Broward Supervisor of Elections, and also asking for explanations as to her illegal conduct. I think that there's going to be a push, and I hope there is, to replace her. The prospect of facing an election in the future against Wasserman Schultz, where the same supervisor is counting the votes, is quite unsettling. There's precedent for a removal of a supervisor for this kind of wrongdoing, and the judge even alluded to it in his decision in a citation of a case in which someone was dismissed for failing to preserve evidence.
So,
and then beyond that, I think criminal investigations are warranted. Yes, absolutely.
so two things I just want to confirm. Number one, this is Brenda Snipes. She was the supervisor of the Board of Elections there, and she, for all intents and purposes, it was public that she was a supporter of Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Well, I think so. They appeared in public a number of times together. Her underling, who actually carried out her order to destroy the ballots, had not one but two framed photographs of himself with one particular politician on his office shelves, and that was Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and he admitted to that in a deposition. The Politico article that came out today also mentioned that Snipes' lawyer in court, reflected in a transcript, offered to produce for the judge an affidavit from Wasserman Schultz to try to shut down the litigation. So there certainly seems to be contact and possibly even coordination between Wasserman Schultz and the supervisor's office.
And Wasserman Schultz has denied she knows anything or her campaign had anything to do with the destruction of the ballots.
Doesn't surprise me that she would deny it. Others can assess what her denials are worth. This is someone who has a record of deceit when it comes to elections, as we saw play out in the 2016 presidential primaries, and how she failed to uphold her promises of neutrality as chair of the DNC.
Right. And, obviously you're not the judge or anything, but if it's illegal to destroy paper ballots, why isn't it a given that there will be a criminal investigation? Why is it just she'll be supervised? There will be more oversight.
It's a great question. I personally called the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, twice over the course of the last several months to report a crime to them, to report that the Supervisor of Elections had destroyed the ballots in violation of federal law, which has criminal sanctions, and the FBI has never called me back. So it does raise the question, in my mind and many other people's minds, as to whether we really have equal justice under law, whether we have the rule of law in this society, or if you're wealthy, powerful, and politically connected, you can just get away with anything.
Right. Yeah, because I know if, one of your campaign volunteers were destroying anything, he or she would probably at this point be either in jail or facing prison time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep pressing it, for criminal investigations and prosecutions.
Wow. Okay. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jordan.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So there you have it. That was Tim Canova. I don't know if you could hear it. I know that there was an echo. Does anyone else wonder if Debbie Wasserman Schultz has like 15 political lives? I mean, there's Hillary Clinton, who could never go to jail for anything, who could never be guilty of anything. It's always, the law doesn't apply to the Clintons. They could have private servers. They could funnel money in from the Clinton Foundation to the campaign and vice versa. But Debbie Wasserman Schultz isn't that far behind Hillary Clinton in the get out of jail free card. Well, it's not really free because they get out of jail and they don't actually have any penalties on anything they do because they're corrupt and they take money from special interests, and then everybody takes care of them. That's how it works. So you're going to tell me Debbie Wasserman Schultz faced Tim Canova in 2016, and that the supervisor of elections in Broward County literally destroyed the paper ballots just on her own? The same supervisor of Board of Elections who has been at events with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who it's known is a supporter of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, just on her own decided, let's just get rid of the paper ballots here. Which, she's a supervisor of elections, so she kind of knows that's illegal. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz had nothing to do with that? What if the truth is Debbie Wasserman Schultz only won by like 4 or 5 points? Maybe she wouldn't want that to get out, since she's had a pretty easy cakewalk for the last decade in South Florida. Maybe she wouldn't want progressives to get energized. Wow, we almost beat Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Let's go at it again. Maybe she only won by 1 or 2 points. Then she really wouldn't want that information out there, because maybe Canova would try and get a recount. Maybe she lost. Then she definitely would want those ballots destroyed. But I find it very interesting that the board, the supervisor of elections, literally breaks the law. And I asked him, and Canova says, that's a good question. There's laws on the books. It's illegal to destroy paper ballots, yet she was allowed to. She's not facing criminal charges yet. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz gets to say, I didn't know anything about it. I had nothing to do with it. Just like she didn't know the Democratic National Committee was basically planting hit pieces on Bernie Sanders during the primary. Just like she didn't know they were trying to come up with fairy tales about how he's like, what was that whole thing? That he's like an atheist before the primaries? Or, she just had bad information when she went on television and said chairs were thrown by Bernie supporters at the Nevada State Convention. I mean, it's literally unbelievable, the lies. If Tim Canova's campaign, if any progressive campaign, even breathed near paper ballots the wrong way, they would be in jail. But when the supervisor of elections, an ally of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, does it, destroys ballots, what can we do? There'll be tighter supervision this time around. Well, why don't we get, I certainly will, but why are there freedom of information requests to see if there were any communication with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and this supervisor of elections? I'd like to see. I'd like to see that, and I will see that. I will put in a freedom of information request. Were there any backroom deals that weren't on the books, that there are no emails for, between Debbie Wasserman Schultz's campaign and this supervisor of elections? That this was one of the main reasons that Tim Canova decided to run as an independent, because he didn't feel in the Democratic primary comfortable that it would be a free and fair election, because the supervisor of elections, a Democrat who supports Debbie Wasserman Schultz, could possibly do this again. At least in the general, you have Republicans looking over it too. Not that Republicans aren't corrupt, but they have no reason to spike up votes to keep Debbie Wasserman Schultz in office. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It's like that cold or bad allergy or sexually transmitted disease that will not go away. Too much? Too much? Let me know if I've gone over the line, folks. But let me tell you something. Debbie Wasserman Schultz didn't know that the Board of Elections, the supervisor, was tossing out the ballots. Just like when I was in Standing Rock, I thought I was in Tahiti. Please. So we'll follow it. Hopefully I get, when I get back on the road this summer, I could go down and cover Canova's campaign as an independent.